Whether you're conquering professional exams or personal milestones, we welcome you to Beyond Clean's Confidence Certification, the 52-week test prep podcast series. With expert insights, actionable tips, and engaging discussions, we'll break down the toughest concepts in sterile processing and build your confidence every step of the way. Join host Sarah B. Cruz as she embarks on a mission to help you not just prep for tests, but craft your success story. And now your host, Sarah B. Cruz.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Confidence Certification, a 52-week test prep podcast series to equip you to take your sterile processing career to the next level. I'm your host, Sarah B. Cruz, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about social media, which is a little weird, right? You think of social media and you just stare quietly at it on our mobile devices or our computers. I'm an Android fan. If you like iPhone, that's great. I think it's too smart for me. But however you're getting your social media fix, it's involved in all of our sterile processing pursuits. And if it's not, I'm going to highly encourage you to make it part of your professional endeavors. Whether you're using Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, I still use Snapchat if I'm aging myself, Instagram, wherever you find yourself when you're staring at the phone, trying to avoid conversation or make time pass faster, there is an opportunity to incorporate sterile processing in that aspect. And especially as we're trying to build the confidence we need to take our certification tests effectively. So I figured, if we're talking about social media, who best to speak on this than Mr. Social Media himself, Hank Balch. Hey, Hank, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Sarah, thanks for the invite. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, and I know there's a lot of shade getting thrown around about social media, and there's so many negative aspects to it, but there's so many positives too, not just in our personal space, but professionally. I know personally, I will be referring to LinkedIn in a lot of this episode. It's probably one of my most favorite platforms to stay on. It lets me act as my professional self in a really organic and natural way. And honestly, I don't have to look at a bunch of vacation pictures. I mean, Hank, what's your favorite social media platform?
Oh, yeah, LinkedIn's definitely there. I think I've posted many times, and just the impact it's had on my career, on my life, on my friendships, relationships that have been built through LinkedIn. Really powerful platform. And it was, as you referenced, kind of one of the first places that I went professionally when I first became a manager. I looked around and said, what's going to be the most beneficial place for me to go to learn, to network? I went to LinkedIn and created a profile, and it's been about 10 years now this year since I've been active on that platform.
And didn't you just hit a personal milestone on LinkedIn?
I did, yeah. Just this past week, crossed over the 25,000 follower mark on LinkedIn. And every day, continuing to seek out new connections in the space and even outside of sterile processing to learn from folks that are still doing cool things. Maybe they're applicable one day to our industry, or maybe it's just, professional development stuff that I can glean from and learn from. So a lot of fun, but yeah, it's been great to be able to meet so many folks through the years.
So if you go on Hank's profile right now, it will say 500 plus connections instead of mine that just says 500 plus. Okay. So kudos to you, Hank. Congratulations. That really is a big milestone. And I think you touch on a really important subject. The number is important, but you also explained how the quality of your connections have helped you professionally in the sterile processing space and helped you not just when you're, networking or anything like that, but as an individual personally. And I really wanted to stress and thank you for highlighting that. But before we get going, how long have you been in the sterile processing space?
Yeah, so I've been doing sterile processing now since 2009. So 14 years, coming up on 15 this next of May.
Nice. And you said you were a manager and now you're working in the Beyond Clean education, marketing, and media promotions. Was there anything in between that you did that might have been different?
Well, when I speak and kind of connect with folks out there in the industry in person, I always say that I'm a technician at heart. I feel like even though I have managed and directed in Kentucky, in Texas, also consulted all around the U.S., I've never lost that technician touch. I think, folks have kidded around about this before, but you throw me in to a wrapping challenge or, to a pill pack challenge, or you putting together an open heart tray, I think I can still hold my own. So yeah, definitely still tech at heart.
Even an open heart tray, I mean,
yeah, oh yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. It's
okay.
built in. It's wired in. Muscle memory.
Yeah, that's great. Vascular has never been my strong suit, but I love wrapping a triangle. Bring on the triangles. I'll make sure every corner's done without an excessive amount of tape, all right? But, Hank, when did you first get certified, though? So you've been in it for about 14 years in different roles and capacities. When did you first get the letters after your name?
Yeah, I lose track on exactly when that was. I feel like it was within my first year. So I think I got hired in May, and I'm pretty sure that I first got certified that October, but it could potentially be the October after that. But the reason that I'm leaning more toward within the first 6 months is because the culture of the department that I was hired in had a really strong certification culture, a lot of support, a lot of resources. And I remember as I ended up taking over as the manager, we continue that certification culture. And one of the things I love to see most is, folks getting off of orientation. They just get their 400 hours and they're already ready to sit for the exam. So it was happening within, 3-4 months of the time they came off the street. They're already certified. And I know that came, from the leaders that we had in our department too. So it was within that kind of 1 year mark is what I'm guessing.
Interesting. And when along that line did you actually start incorporating social media into Sterile Pod? We're not talking about your private Facebook or, the one where you share with just your family and the pictures of your dogs and your kids and stuff like that. When did you actually start incorporating social media into your sterile processing professional pursuits?
Yeah, that had happened when I became a manager in 2013. And again, that's I got the role, I think, in the fall. It was around the October timeframe. And immediately I realized what a lot of leaders realize is you're a tech one day, and then you walk into the manager office and you don't magically become smarter. You don't magically become a leader that you weren't the day before. You don't magically become anything. You just get a new title and you get all this responsibility. And so I looked around and said, oh, now there's no one else to ask. The buck stops with me. All the problems are on my shoulders and I need to figure out how to do this thing. And so I started looking around on the internet and did not find a lot of resources. And, this is kind of my personal story. It's also the story of Beyond Clean that we've told, many times elsewhere, but there was a lot of stuff out there about how to get certified. There was a lot of stuff out there about IFUs, a lot of technical stuff, but there wasn't hardly anything about how to lead these departments, how to think through problems, just on the practical kind of social media friendly kind of content. So I got signed up on LinkedIn and said, I'm going to start connecting with people and I'm going to start just writing and sharing my impression and opinions and questions about what I'm going through as a new leader. And yeah, I started that in 2013 on LinkedIn, and 10 years later, I'm still basically doing the same thing.
Hey, listen, if it works, right? And I think a lot of people would agree with me when they say the best thing that's come out of social media for sterile processing has been Beyond Clean and the hundreds of continuing education that they offer. And of course, the multitude of podcasts, like audio learners are living and thriving for this. So right. I think the fact that we're doing the confidence certification as a audio modality for that type of learning, hey, I think that's awesome. So, but in your opinion, what has been the best part of social media that has helped sterile processing?
Yeah, I probably should have started with this at the beginning of the interview. But one of the things that I like to tell folks is you need to remember that social media means people. All of these profiles, all these pages, everyone who comments or likes or engages, there's a person at the other end of that click or that follow or that message. And it's really easy when you're talking about metrics and followers and blah, blah, blah. Like it just all turns into numbers, just like it does in sterile processing when we think about patients. And we got 22 cases tomorrow, or we got, all this volume, all these trays or whatever. And if you forget that the numbers mean people, then you approach it in a completely different kind of mindset. So for social media, I think the important piece of the puzzle is always remembering that as you're building that presence, as you're engaging with people, as you're sharing with profiles and your followers, those are people who are responsible for other people's lives. And anything that you can say to them, encourage them, challenge them with, you're impacting the industry in infinite different numbers of ways. And I think for me, that's been the most exciting thing to see continue to happen in social media, because folks have just come alive, not even just on LinkedIn, but like you mentioned, every area today that has a platform, if it's TikTok, if it's Snapchat, if it's, you name it, there's someone in sterile processing out there today that's creating content. And that was not true in 2013. It wasn't even really true in 2015, 2016. But, since 2017, when we kind of really punched it in the mouth, I think a lot of people woke up and said, hey, there's value here. There's audience here. There's impact here. And it's been awesome to see that.
Oh, 100%. And, not to play the antagonist, but some might say that the downside to social media is also people, right? So it's like you look at the huge endless feeds of people arguing with each other, and they look just like these huge breakup texts, like they're 17 sentences long. And we all know that people have stopped reading by the third sentence, already formed their opinion, and are now typing it and just ignored all the other possibly tangible points you are making. And I think that's another important aspect, that while there are people at the other end of that click, and raising that empathy the same way we do in sterile processing, to remember that social media is a human interaction. It's also a human interaction. And working with certain people in the sterile processing space in general can be daunting, especially when you guys have different points of view, right? So now I have to beg the question, what is the part of social media that you dislike the most?
Yeah. So in 2019, I was invited to speak at the World Congress for Sterilization in the Netherlands. And the talk that I gave was titled, "One Click Can Save a Life." And the majority of the presentation was talking about the positives that we were just kind of alluding to. But what I did is I took a bunch of screenshots of conversations across social media, and it was exactly what you were talking about. There's people coming and saying, hey, I've got this device. How do I process it? And I was going through all the comments of the non-compliant, the incorrect, the unsafe ways that people were being told to process these devices. And I just had example after example after example, not just the IFU piece, but just how do I deal with this teammate, or how do I respond to this, or just all these horrible, bad pieces of advice. And in that presentation in the Netherlands, and also, since then, as I talked about this topic, I think it's really important to realize there's no going back. It's like we've opened Pandora's box. It's out. These people are out on social media. They're asking questions. They're seeking for answers. That's going to happen whether we like it or not. The only thing that we can manage is inserting ourselves into that conversation and being present with the right answers, and creating platforms and opportunities to pull to gather the people that are interested in these various topics to hopefully hear better answers. Now, I want to add one little caveat that you kind of alluded to. I am very pro free speech.
No, I can't see that about you, Hank.
and very pro open to opinions, even when those are really strong opinions about what the industry needs or how to change or how to respond to situations. And I think there's a lot of people who don't like that, and they would put that in the negative category of social media because they don't want to hear those disagreements, or they don't want to hear anyone that disagrees with them. They don't want to hear anyone say something bad about something they really care about and they really believe is, whatever. And I think that's a really important consideration for us is we've got to be grown-ups, and we got to realize that in those scenarios, disagreements is what helps us as an industry get to the place we need to go. If everyone was only always agreeing with everything on social media, it would be the most boring thing in the world. And that's it's just not where we want to be either.
Right. And let's always encourage group thought and not group think. Group think, this concept that you have to agree with what's going on around you in order to be deemed commendable or an expert. You can have group thought that contributes in the space in an effective way that we strive for and that our industry needs, as you've alluded to, without falling victim to group think and just going with the flow because that's what everybody else is saying. So we are going to take a short break, and of course you'll get your mid-session confidence boost. And don't worry, me and Hank will be here waiting for you when you come back. It's time for our mid-episode confidence boost, where we focus on a key sterile processing test concept. Now, there's no guarantee these concepts will be on the test that you take, but they are key concepts to the workplace and are discussed in the literature. Today, we'll cover site surveyors. Often confused with the Joint Commission, site surveyors are typically independent companies or consultants hired by the department leads or healthcare leadership to come into a department to perform an assessment. This is also known as an audit. During this audit, the site surveyors assess the department for quality concerns. They inspect the functionality of the department layout and design. They have focus on education, documentation, process, procedures, and everything else that a sterile processing department is built on. Often used as the precursor to a Joint Commission walkthrough, site surveyors create an all-encompassing audit report that the facility can use as a baseline for improvement and items that should be addressed before their upcoming accrediting walkthrough. This audit can also be performed to assist departments during leadership transition, frontline overhaul, and glaring patient safety issues. They can also provide interim leadership and help assist the onboarding of new employees, implementing new practices, or department updates. That's going to wrap this week's mid-session confidence boost. Good luck. Hey, everybody, and welcome back. What do you guys think about the mid-session confidence boost? Has there been a term or a concept that I went over that is still prying and gnawing at you? Maybe you need a little bit further elaboration, or maybe there's a topic I haven't gone over yet. Keep in mind, it's not a substitute for studying your manual. Me and Bobby talk about that all the time, right? But if you find that we haven't gone over a term that you would like us to explain a little bit more, feel free to reach out to us at info@beyondclean.net, and maybe we can get it into one of these upcoming episodes. And who knows, maybe it's a topic that other people are struggling with, and now you've just helped the entire listening audience. Kudos to you. Pat yourself on the professional back for advocating for your space. And speaking of advocating for our space, we are coming back and talking about social media with Hank Balch. And Hank, let's just cut right through it. Tell me your honest opinion about test taking and social media. Just straight out the rip.
Yeah. So what's really unique about social media as opposed to other types of media is it's built for convenience. The whole vision and model is to make it as easy as possible to consume whatever content it is. And we're talking about like all the content out there, not just sterile processing, not just healthcare, but anything. If you're coming to social, it's because you want some quick hits. You're not necessarily coming to spend an hour, to read a book. You're not necessarily coming an hour and a half to watch a full length movie. You're coming to see clips. You're coming to see like little bitty bursts here, little GIFs, like you name it. That's why people come to social. So when you bring that into the sterilization conversation around certification, you have to be aware of the medium that is now being confronted with the mission to get certified. And what happens is the audience, including us, when we come with certification on our mind, we're coming to quickly get insights in a convenient and creative type of format. So if you're coming, as we talked about at the beginning of the show before the break, if you're coming to social media for correct answers around how to study or the best way to study or concepts for your certification exam, you got to be careful, because the flashiest, the most convenient, the funnest content that you may engage with may not be the best content, or the best content to help you prepare correctly for your certification exam. And that's challenging for folks that are not certified yet. Maybe they're newer to the industry. How do you dig through and how do you determine, hey, this is a very well produced piece of content. It's funny. It's engaging. It's easy and convenient. That's great. So that must mean that it's all true and good. And this is the direction that I need to keep consuming. So I don't have all the answers to that, Sarah. I wish I did. But I think it's important that folks know that's what they're going to be confronting when they go out there on social for that.
Yeah, but it's kind of like raising the curtain. Like, Wizard of Oz, they raised the curtain and it was just this one guy back there doing what he thought was best, right? So when you raise that on social media, it brings it almost a humanistic approach, right? It's saying that, again, social media is made up of people, and even with the best intentions, sometimes people may lead it the wrong way, lead it astray. But then there's also opportunity where people are contributing to the ongoing knowledge of that way in those ways that you have described. So I know personally that as a sterile processing instructor, there was not a lot of content available that supplemented my education that I was teaching. So I had to create it myself, literally making the triangle fold and the sequential folds and, demonstrating that. So a lot of the times, as somebody who's never been in sterile processing, like you said, they don't know how to vet what, quote, good information is. Because the people putting it out there, I don't believe the people putting out any type of content have ill will towards the content they're putting out, whether it ruffles people's feathers, goes against the status quo, or even is just a quick little video on how to wrap a triangle. They're putting it out there with the best intentions, but it's the quality of that really suffers, especially as the test taker. So do you have any tips that can help professionals vet what maybe is good or is not good content, aside from a really great camera? I remember, oh my gosh, so I could always tell about the progress and quality of my videos based on the camera that I'm using. And I remember a key moment when I stopped turning my camera vertically and realized I had to turn it horizontally to actually make it fit in the YouTube spot. So is there any indications that you can give that would help professionals vet and screen good content for education?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is go back to what we've been talking about this entire episode is who is the one behind the content. If you can't tell, if it's like some brand, but there's no like about me section and there's no explanation to the experience or the qualifications from the person that's creating this, if it's flashcards, if it's videos, whatever, if you don't know the who behind it, you're putting yourself in a very precarious position. And if you don't know, like let's say that you do come across the who and it's this guy named Hank Balch, but you don't know him. who is this guy? Well, that's when you can go back to your network and you can say, hey, does anybody else know who this Hank guy is? He's got some stuff out there. It looks pretty cool. He's got an awesome beard. Do I trust him if he's going to be teaching me how to get certified? That's recommendation number one. Recommendation number two, though, for vetting it also goes to a really important distinction between an educator and someone else who is certified. So let me just kind of flesh this out here. Just because you've gotten your certification is because you've already kind of hiked the trail and even made it to the top of the mountain does not make you a guide automatically. Just because you pass certification does not make you an educator automatically. There's a skill set that comes into teaching other people how you did it. There's a lot of people who can do it themselves who just, for many reasons, are not good communicators, not good educators, not good teachers, and that's okay. We don't all have to have that skill set. But realizing as you're consuming this content, is this person, are they just certified and they've anointed themselves as an educator now to tell everyone else how to do what they did? Or are they demonstrating that natural skill set or even the studied skill set on how to educate well and effectively? And that, it does take some discernment to figure that out. But I think it goes back again to what other kind of content are they creating? What's their purpose of doing this? Can you see by other videos how much they care about their job and profession? If they're making other videos or content that they're clearly cutting corners, or they just have an approach to the industry and the job that you find not attractive, then you should maybe think twice about consuming their content to get certified.
I like how you talked about hiked that trail and the journey of becoming certified and it being the beacon of all knowledge, dare I say, because I actually referred to your article. So you failed your sterile processing certification exam, one of the Beyond Clean CE approved articles on the go. And I referred to it last week because I tried to use it as a way to position people to be encouraged. Even when they fail, it's okay because that's not even the finish line. And I like how in your article you talked about some of the reasons why professionals do that. Like once I get the letters, that's it. And Beyond Clean really demonstrates why you need to continue learning even after you get all the letters after your name. So how do you think social media helps people realize that they're just on a, summit on this Mount Everest of sterile processing education? And how could they use social media to remind them or help keep them going to continue to consume good education?
Right. Yeah, this is one of those areas I think it is a double-edged sword on social media. And I'll give you a great example. When people get certified, there's a big celebration. You can see it on all the social media pages. I just got certified. Hundreds of comments. Awesome, 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 awesome. When's the next time that we hear from that person, if ever, on that page? When's the next time that we celebrate that person, if ever, on that page? Well, what is that telling to every other person on that page? The way you get celebrated, and the only time that you get celebrated is when you get these letters behind your name when you pass the certification exam. That's it. You have arrived. It's the top of the mountain. It's not a stage as you continue up the mountain. And I think that's extremely problematic. That's one of the reasons, of course, through Beyond Clean, we're so focused on continuing education because we believe that it's not the end point. It's the beginning of your long journey to continual improvement and efficiency and quality and passion. All those things can continue to grow. So I think as an industry, we need to do a better job celebrating, hey, I went to this virtual conference or I went to this in-person regional conference and I learned this new thing. There should be hundreds of comments and celebrations saying, that's awesome. You learned how to leak test correctly, or you learned how to care and handling now differently from the clinic setting into the hospital setting. How freaking awesome is that? You're changing the world. We don't do that. We should do that. And I think that would change that dynamic.
It kind of alludes to this certification culture that you had mentioned. And oh man, that would be a great article. That's the next article, Hank, is certification culture. And you spoke specifically to it in your department, which is an anomaly in itself because you look at a lot of these spaces and there isn't one usually, right? Or the culture is get it done so I don't have to let you go, right? So there's not necessarily this support behind, hey, you should get certified so that you can grow professionally or you can contribute to the organization. It's very secularized or limited to the facility and self, right? And it's interesting that we talk about that on a podcast dedicated to how you can take your sterile processing career to the next level, right? So as we challenge this limiting belief that certification is not that final step and recognizing and celebrating all the items after that, where can we push ourselves to take our now certified brains, right? We got it all in there. We understand why, and now we know what's happening in the autoclave when we press start, and encourage ourselves to keep going, because I got brain fatigue after I get certified. I am study burnt out. Like, what do we do to keep that moving? Like, oh my God, I just certified confidently and you want me to do more? Come on, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of different angles to that conversation, but I guess one of the most important ones that I bring up here is, unlike a lot of other careers in healthcare, there's not a college degree program for us. There's no standardized educational pathway. Even with certification, the vast majority of states do not require certification. And so even the decision to become certified, like you said, is either a department decision and or a personal decision. But just like in college, I've been to college. I spent 10 years of my life in college. I did 4 years as an undergrad. I did 5 years with a master's degree. I did a year and a half in law school, and I even did a semester in the MBA.
Oh my gosh.
I was so sick of college by the time I got done. But what's unique about college and any really structured curriculum like that is you learn how to learn. More importantly than anything else of what you learn how to learn. And then you can direct that skill set to anything that you want to learn about. My son is 7. He's learned about hurricanes now. He can't get enough about hurricanes. And he's constantly telling me like which typhoon or, which hurricane did the most damage and everything else. And I know next week he may be interested in something completely random, like forest fires or something else. I don't know why he likes disasters. But anyways, he knows how, though, to conceptualize what it looks like to learn about things and the questions to ask about things. And so what certification does, and one of the reasons that we are very pro-certification at Beyond Clean, and I'm personally very pro the certification culture, is not because it gets you to this mountaintop, not even because it gets you paid more necessarily, not because it automatically gets you the respect of your peers necessarily. Sometimes that happens. Many times it doesn't. Let's just be honest. But what it does do, and what it can do, is it can teach our people how to learn. And then for the rest of their careers, they know how to study now. They know how to do flashcards. They know how to pick whatever topic under the sun in sterile processing and dig into it good enough that they could pass a standardized exam. That's what's really important, and that's where I see the value of this.
And it almost kind of comes full circle, as we're nearing the end of our time together. You get certified so that you can learn, right? And as we've demonstrated, continuing education is really beneficial when you have that great foundation for learning, not just being desired learning, but understanding how to learn. And then that translates to the social media posts. I've personally participated in the Facebook answering of what is this instrument and how do I clean it? And without sounding like the monotonous check the IFU, asking the probing questions and really taking that opportunity to say, what did the IFUs say? What type of detergent did they mention? Does it mention soak time? So not necessarily giving them the answer, but giving them the opportunity to learn for themselves to find the correct answer, right? So it's almost like you get certified, you learn. Now the quality of the content or the answers you're putting out on social media are better, and it comes full circle because, I still pop around and see what people are talking about. Remember when everybody was posting about T-probes for a while, and now everybody's talking about water quality, right? So there's tons of information out there, and I think getting certified and learning how to learn is just pushing past that idea that it's the end all be all, and we have so much to give back to this space that I think certification is a great jump point for.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. And what I would kind of wrap on this topic of social and getting certified and learning to learn is every one of us is different. All of our skill sets are different. We're not asking you, and I'm not asking you to become the next, Instagram, like king or queen of educational content or Twitter or what have you. If you want to do that, if that's your skill set, great. Like we do need people out there doing those kinds of things. But there's a lot of ways that you can add value to the conversation that's going on social and leveraging your own certification journey to share what you're learning and what you're continuing to learn even after you're certified through continuing education. And that can be through commenting, that can be through sharing content, that can be through asking questions on the post or even private message. There's a million things that are not necessarily making you out to be the know-it-all on these topics on social, and that's where we really get into trouble sometimes. I don't know it all. I try to be very honest about that and stay in my lane, but I care about it all. And anything that's interesting or controversial or whatever, like that's where you see me in the comment section. That's where you see me engaging, asking questions, because I also want to continue learning myself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and kudos to anybody that is on Twitter. The limitation of the character count, I can't. I circle the drain longer than anything that I've ever seen in my kitchen sink, and I can't get to the point fast enough. So Twitter is not my learning platform, to say the least. And Hank, typically when we wrap the show, we like to give our listeners homework. I don't think they hate it, but that might be me, putting the curtain over my eyes, dare I say. So what type of homework would you give to our listeners that would help them either incorporate social media to their studying efficiently, or how can they use social media to their best advantage in their study? What can they do to help with that?
So I know we started with this. You kind of called out LinkedIn as one of your favorite professional platforms, but I would encourage anyone who is looking at certification as a means to grow your career. It can help you. It's important, but LinkedIn is just as, if not in some ways, potentially more important to get exposed and connected to the kinds of professionals who will hire you one day or promote you or collaborate with you on all kinds of fun projects. There's millions of things. There's millions of connections that happen every single day on LinkedIn in our industry, in our space. And if you're not there, you're just missing out. And it's really, really simple to create a profile, just like you do on every other social media account, and then start engaging with and following those conversations. So that would be my most important piece of advice is if you're looking to grow, to get on LinkedIn and start reading what folks are saying, get connected with me and Sarah. And then through us, you can get connected with all kinds of other folks that are on there.
Right. And remember, Hank's got the 500 plus.
That's right.
So you've got lots of opportunities to connect with people. I probably only have 2 pluses after my name, but you got to have goals to shoot towards, right? And just as Hank was speaking on, it's a really big homework assignment because the rest of our conversations we're going to have probably for the next 8 or 9 episodes will be about the benefits of including networking, professional communities, and how to use them more effectively, even while creating smart goals or smarter goals, which we'll be talking about next week. So make sure you tune in. Hank, thanks for hanging out with us today. It's been a real pleasure. Yeah.
Yep. And I like to remind everyone, like we say here all the time at Beyond Clean, keep fighting dirty.
All right, everybody. Bye. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. For more sterile processing education and resources, make sure to visit beyondclean.net or follow Beyond Clean on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget to check out over 1,000 SPD-related videos at youtube.com/beyondclean. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can reach out to info@beyondclean.net. Finally, make sure to download the Beyond Clean mobile app on the Apple and Android app stores so that you don't miss a future episode of any of the other awesome Beyond Clean podcasts. My name's Sarah B. Cruz, and you've been listening to Confidence Certification. Until next time, keep fighting dirty and pass that test with confidence.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast series are of Sarah B. Cruz only and do not represent the companies she works for or collaborates with.